Some years ago, working with a number of people, including folks from the National Association of Industrial and Office Properties here in Massachusetts, we began the development of something called the Economic Development Assessment Tool. And the idea was that at the very beginning, when we are trying to find out ways of moving forward on economic development, it makes a lot of sense to do an assessment of your own town or city. Where are your strengths and weaknesses? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? But we wanted to be based not on what we thought about it, but what the people who actually help firms make decisions about where they might expand or build a new facility. And so we worked very closely with NIOP to figure out what really matters. And what was great about that experience is that many of our assumptions that Don would talk about were proven false. We thought, for example, that it's really, really important to give a good set of tax incentives. We were laughed at by the folks who actually help firms make that decision. Yeah, we'll always ask for a tax incentive, a tax abatement, or some kind of subsidy. But that's after we've already made the decision that we're pretty sure we want to go to your town for all kinds of other reasons. We thought that unions would be a real terrible problem. Maybe they were once. They aren't again. Last night I was on WGBH talking about this issue with Emily Rooney. So what we did is we developed a tool that cities and towns, their mayors, city managers, assembly people, town council, could work through, both as a learning experience, fill out almost 200 questions, Mayor, you filled out with your staff. It comes back and it goes through a secure server at Northeastern. We don't share these results with anybody unless the mayor asks us to, so that these are secure. And it spits out a report card. In fact, it's all color-coded, red, yellow, green. Because what we do is we compare your answers to everyone else who's done it. Right now we have almost 90 cities and towns who've done that. Most of them in New England, but now with our association with the National League of Cities, we're doing this all across the country. So we'll soon be able to compare, for instance, Holyoke, with cities and towns in North Carolina or South Carolina, major competitors to Massachusetts cities and towns. And then we take that report and our staff carefully goes through it and summarizes it. I'm going to give you a little bit of that. But before we do that and show you what results we have so far, and I'm thrilled to say that Holyoke is the first city in the United States to do it twice, to actually do it again, and more cities are going to be doing that to see how are you doing? Are you improving? Where are you improving? How can you make this work better? But before I get into that, I want to go back and take a look at where we are in the Massachusetts economy. What are the key issues? And the point I want to make is we're coming into the absolutely ideal time for what this task force and what this city is trying to do. This is the time when we're going to start seeing the recovery of the economy, and businesses are going to start making decisions again about where to expand operations, manufacturing and construction, transportation, all kinds of industries. So this is the perfect time to be set up to win some of those. And that's what we're going to talk about. So let me just go through this very quickly. Today's agenda, I'm going to look quickly at economic conditions, demographic trends, really important, it turns out, state and local fiscal conditions, economic development for cities, and then we're going to take a look quickly at Holyoke's strengths and weaknesses from this economic development assessment. So here's the employment picture for the United States and Massachusetts. From December 2007, the month in which the recession officially began, according to those people at the National Bureau of Economic Research who date recessions. And you'll see that unemployment, as you know, exploded. But you'll also see that Massachusetts, which are the black bars, saw their unemployment rates rise slower than the nation. This is the first time that's happened in over 3 recessions. In previous recessions, at the beginning of the 2000s, in the 1990s, 1980s, we seem to have a recession at the beginning of every decade. Massachusetts was slaughtered compared with the rest of the country. This time, statewide, we're doing better. There are better strengths and weaknesses from different towns and cities. Here's a better way to look at it in terms of just looking at just the last year, between December 09 and December 10. Back in January, just about a year ago, the U.S. national unemployment rate was 9.7%. We were 9.5%. Since that time, in part because of the particularly good use of stimulus money by the governor and the administration, we have seen our unemployment rate come down to about 8.2%, whereas by December we were down to 9.4%. The latest number that just came out last Friday, 9% nationwide, but mostly because people are dropping out of the labor force rather than creating a lot of new jobs. We are creating a lot of jobs. If you looked at the return of the Massachusetts economy since the recession last year, just between January and September of last year, I have to update these numbers. The nice thing about it was most people think, well, it was all in high tech or it was just in a few sectors. No, it was across the board. We had, between January and September, we grew the economy 1.2% with the number of jobs created, compared with only 0.5% nationwide. We really had a major expansion in construction. Again, that was the very good use of ARRA money. You can see it because all the places you drive and you see construction going up. Actually, nationwide construction was down this year, or last year. We did just about as well as the rest of the country in manufacturing. Manufacturing did a little bit better in the Midwest because the auto industry started coming back after we bailed out the auto industry. Thank you, Detroit. We've done better in trade, transportation, and utilities, in information services. We've done better in professional and business services, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's across the board. Good news. We've now taken a look and we said, let's project out into the future. What will this look like? And of course, there's a lot of debate about where the economy is going. This is a national projection, and this is a projection I particularly like to use because it's the official one of the Obama administration. It's put out by the U.S. Office of Management and Budget, which is a cabinet office in the Obama administration. It's more or less in line with other projections of what we see in the economy. You'll see we had a horrible 2009 when the economy contracted by nearly 3%, 2.5%. And then this past year, we're going to come in at about 3.2% when the final numbers come in another few months. And OMB projects that we're going to see healthy growth, 3.6% next year, this year, 4.2% the year after, 4.2%. And then we'll, by the end of this decade, get back to kind of normal economic growth of about 2.5%. That is good news. It's too slow in occurring, but it's good news because it says, if this is right, and there's good reason to believe it will be right, we've got an economic recovery on its way. It's been delayed. Usually when we have recessions like this, we've seen a recovery in GDP and employment much faster, but it is coming. It is coming, and I'll bet a lot of money on that. The problem is that the return to full employment is going to be slower. This again is OMB's projections. So they projected that for all of last year, the average unemployment rate is 9.7%. That's just about right. I think it's going to come in around 9.6 because of the very good December and January numbers. But they don't really see the unemployment rate getting below 6%, which might be something more akin to normal, until 2014. All right, we're going to 2015 will be the first time we see that, and then we'll kind of get to a more normal unemployment rate of about 5.2%. I still think that's a little too high, but that's what's now the kind of new normal. The point I want to make here is that over the next year or two is when we're going to see a significant re-expansion of the economy. New jobs are going to be created. And the answer is, the question I want to ask is a very simple one that all of us are asking in the room. How do we get our share of those jobs? That's the name of the game. They're going to be there. It's not like we're going to continue to see a decline nationwide. Who gets those jobs? Who wins those jobs? That's going to be the secret here. So let's take a look at the demographic challenge. Most of us don't think about the demographic challenge. I think about it all the time. I woke up, I've been teaching economics for 40 years. You know, my wife tells me I became an economist because I have neither the personality nor charm to be an accountant. But I woke up one morning and I turned to my staff and I said, I've wasted 40 years being an economist. What I really wanted to be was a demographer, because demography is really important. In fact, I'm teaching a big course, and that's why I have to race back, because my class meets tonight. Nationwide, we're going to have about an 8.7% growth in the national population between 2010 and 2020. That's based on our expectations of birth rates, mortality rates, and immigration. It is probably a fairly decent projection. In Massachusetts, we only expect a rate of only about 3.1%, one of the slowest growths in the country. Not the slowest, but one of the slowest. Connecticut is growing even slower, and I was with Governor Malloy last week, and we talked about that. Connecticut is the only state destined to grow slower than us over the next decade. But that's not really the problem that we're growing so slowly. The real problem is we're all getting older, and we're getting older really fast. We had about 70 million additional kids born between 1946 and 1964, the baby boom generation. 70 million more kids than we would have had under normal fertility rates. We converted the entire American economy around kids. Some of you in the room remember it because I'm actually a little pre-baby boomer. I was born in 1944. So what did we do? The iconic expression of our generation was Disneyland in California, and then Disney World. It was also suburbia. We wanted places where we could put the jungle gym in the backyard. And it was the Mickey Mouse Club, M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U. We remember it, right? It was Romper Room. It was Ed Sullivan, right? Well, all of us are going through, and most of us have survived.